There we go.
Thanks. Receiving over 90% in a precinct is a marker for fraud. In Fulton County alone, we can see that more than 150 precincts voted 90% or more for Biden. In the statewide race that was decided by less than 13,000 votes, these 150 Fulton precincts alone accounted for 152,000 Biden votes. This is a clear indicator of suspicious or outright fraudulent activity.
We've scanned 113,130 as of moments ago. We've adjudicated 106,000 plus of those.
Adjudication, the process of reviewing a ballot that may have been flagged during the ballot scanning process.
The only ballots that are adjudicated are if we have a ballot with a contest on it in which there's some question as to how the computer reads it. So the vote review panel then determines voter intent.
In 94 precincts in DeKalb County, it is statistically impossible to have 9 out of 10 voters voting for Joe Biden.
That is so fat and so big you cannot miss we're talking about the ballot. Do you agree? Okay.
I do.
And I'm not going to roll up to the bottom so nobody gets concerned. So let's look at the differences between the two. You see the code on the right?
He's talking about
that barcode?
Okay.
Let's scroll back to the other one. Please be very careful not to show any other data to confuse people. Let's go up. There we go. Keep on going. And now let's look at the right side of the ballot. See that? There's no code there. Okay.
Where it would be right there. Okay, that's the point. Okay.
Yeah, so there's no code there. Can we agree on that?
Yes.
Side to side. Okay. I didn't print this ballot. I do not assign the districts. I only look at the ballots. This is what the ballot says. Let's go into the next slide, please. Okay. Again, you can discard the information at the bottom if it confuses you. So please, let's zoom up so there's no confusion. You have a ballot from a Democrat propensity area on the left. I did not print the ballot, have nothing to do with it. You have a ballot from the same county on the right. I did not print the ballot, I have nothing to do with it. You're only looking at them side by side. Why is the code not there? Now let's go to the next one, please. We'll scroll it up. Okay, that code, I didn't create any of these graphics. These come from third parties. They come from how your state adjudicates these. These come from what are the checksums in the barcode. Basically, that barcode that you see missing up there is what helps adjudicate it. And if you want to zoom it way up to the bottom there, none of these graphics are mine. Keep on going. Keep on going. Keep on going. That's how you verify and adjudicate and tabulate and correlate that code. So we've now established that, wow, that code's not there. Can we go to the next slide, please? Great. Okay, let's get rid of the top so we don't get confused between the icons of the parties, and let's just look at a ballot. We've all been hunting probably or know what hunting is. We look through a scope. There's a crosshair in the center. You put that crosshair on exactly what you want to hit. That's called hitting the target. If you have hunted in your life and you're not lined up on the crosshairs and you're doing a 50-yard shot and you're kind of going to the bottom right, you're going to miss whatever your target is. I have questions about these targets. I have simple questions and forensics. Why is the ballot from one county on the left, why does it have a completely separate code in it than the one on the right? These are actually coded to where they come from. Why should you be able to look at a ballot and know whether it came from a Republican area or a Democratic area? This concerns me. I don't think you should be able to know. Can we look on? So, we don't care about the scan lines. We don't care about the resolution. We don't care about any of that. We care about the piece of paper. And if you're looking at the bullseye, can we draw that up and try to keep them both in frame? Just the targets on the bottom. There you go. If we're looking at the bullseye, the very thing that says, hey, look here. Well, the left one's saying, look in my yard, and the right one's saying, look 2 houses over. But you know what? The ovals never moved because they were printed hard. So even as a mechanical engineer or photography or optics or camera, when you expect to take a picture and you hold it at somebody, you're not trying to photograph two people over. And this is what it tells the machine to do. This is a problem at the most lowest elementary level. And the number one way it's cloaked, well, we can't see it in the code. We don't know how it's done. Show me the code that does it. Well, that's the code. That's the code. Any printer industry executive, any monetary printing executive, any engineer in the world that deals with printing will tell you this simple fact. If your machine is not calibrated to hit the target, it becomes something else.
We've just seen a few examples of statistical irregularities and impossibilities. Now, we'll take a closer look at some vote manipulation within the election database, including explicit vote count switching from one candidate to another. We can see in Dodge County, there's a lot of strange activity going on. The left side of the screen shows incremental votes as they were reported for both election day and absentee. On the right, we can see the total vote counts, which should only be incremental, moving as the county reported in real time. Again, here we're focusing only on Donald Trump's votes. So this wouldn't necessarily be captured at the state totals as they're reported on TV, since one county's deduction in votes can be offset by another county's reporting of equal or greater votes. The first question you're going to want to ask, or already have asked, is why are any bars going negative? And the answer is they shouldn't. Unbeknownst to the general public, votes for Donald Trump were being switched and removed from his total, which often coincided with other precinct updates that simultaneously offset deductions so that they appeared to remain neutral to outside observers. Across the three counties of Dodge, Daughtry, and Putnam, Trump has over 30,000 votes that simply disappear. Here, we have clear visibility of an event that occurred at the county level as we compare two data sources. In this case, Donald Trump reported 29,391 votes at 9/11 local time in Bibb County, Georgia. Simultaneously, Joe Biden was reported to have 17,218 votes. Minutes later, at the next reported time update from the precinct data sources, Donald Trump is reported to have 17,218 votes, and Biden now has 29,391 votes. A clear and exact switch of vote totals between candidates. Because there is a time lag between each state-reported aggregation of county results, this type of switch can go undetected in state reporting, as long as it falls after the latest state refresh and before the next state update.
According to the Georgia Secretary of State website, Trump lost by 12,670 votes. As you saw earlier in this video, far more than that were taken from President Trump.
In statistics, an anomaly or outlier is an observation or event that deviates so much from other events that it arouses suspicions in its generation. In this, an isolation force is defined as a specialized learning algorithm for anomaly detection that works to the principle of isolating these outliers and flagging them for potential review. Remember these graphs when you meet your government officials in person. The burden of proof is on the system to prove our elections were fair, and not the people.
Okay, so here's how your vote is counted in Georgia using Fulton County's process as an example. So after you check in at a poll pad to vote on election day, you go to an ImageCast precinct terminal. After you cast your vote, a ballot image is saved on the machine. And after all the polls close, the SD cards containing all the ballot images are removed from the terminals and transported by car to, in Fulton County, one of 4 drop-off locations. Then it's transferred by police escort to the 1365 English Street warehouse. Inside of there, it is run through a tabulation software called Democracy Suite, which counts the ballots and exports the totals to a Dominion server that inserts those totals into a SQL Server database. From that point, it's directly transmitted to the CITL election night reporting server. The election night reporting server is responsible for transmitting the totals to the Secretary of State for output to their website, and data aggregators like Edison who then transmit that data to the networks.
As you just saw, there's a standard process for transferring votes by memory card from precinct to county vote aggregators. Now, let's focus specifically on this square box detailing the data entry process for county updates. The following options are available to anyone with access to these computers working in the election software: updating vote batches, rejecting vote batches, and even more notable, generating new or temporary batches that can be injected directly into the vote tally. Each of these options can then be validated and published into the system. Again, anyone working in the election software at this point has the power to manipulate large batches of votes. And all of this is before the data is even uploaded to the server.
What should have happened during the validation process? Were there 2 observers from both parties present for the transmission of the SD card? Were there 2 observers from both parties present in the car when the votes were taken to the drop-off locations? Is there a public log?
County's statement on ballots went out on national TV. We had 113,130 votes at the time, and we had to adjudicate 106,000 of them. You know what that's really saying? Your machine didn't work. When the national average for the last elections, 2016, was what? 1.2%. That's an audited number. 1.2% of the total had to be adjudicated. And then you look at 2018, nationally, 2.7%. But yet your own election officials said we had to do this 93.6% of the time. Let me decode that for you. Mr. Mechanical Engineer, your machine doesn't work. Mr. Printer, your ballot's screwed up. Because you took something that should have been transparent and easy and readable, and you put an opinion smack dab in the middle of it. How is that acceptable? That's like depositing $100 and your bank says, well, we only see it as $2.33. That's our opinion of it. Would you accept that? Because that's the net effect of this. No, it is unacceptable. And by the way, where everybody talks about batch scanning, which you have on video, people standing there feeding the ballots, doing the 3-card Monty, run them again. 1-card Monty, run them again. Let me tell you how that works, right? You don't go to the bank and deposit $1,000 and say, hand it back. Let me run the same $1,000 through, and now you got a $2,000 net deposit. And you don't say, hand that $1,000 back, let me run it again, and now I got a $3,000 net deposit. We also don't take our $600 stimulus check and feed it to a Dominion machine because we get $187,000 back. Unacceptable. Now, you might be able to accept these, and everybody might try to talk quietly about it and duck their heads in the sand. This is not even a beating of a drum. This is a burning of a city. This is a broadcasting to every person who voted in Georgia. Your vote doesn't matter because we're going to decide what you really meant.
No. Sorry, to add to that, too, I wanted to highlight just very quickly, I know we're short on time, but we mentioned the RTR software options in the video. And what's important here is that this is built into the software itself so that, when anyone logs into their Windows or Apple machines, you have a certain set of, maybe you have parental controls on there for children, but in this particular case, there's no overarching controls, and this type of flexibility of options you see here on that 1 through 4 is available. So there's a situation where new batches can be recreated, you can reject, which is outside of this typical chain of sequence within this network diagram where votes should go in at the polling locations. Votes should be counted at the absentee counting locations and through SD cards, and only in extreme situations, if there was an adjudication, are those processes should they be altered. And the fact that this exists anywhere within this sort of sequential supply is a vulnerability in the overall system. So this is here to identify that vulnerability exists, and also to reinforce the fact that what we had seen in our data analysis of votes going negative should be outside of that process and also should not exist, because we are thinking about a machine talking to a machine talking to a machine. And a machine, unless it's explicitly programmed to decrement, should not decrement, especially in a voting situation. Similar as the way you deposit money into a bank account you mentioned earlier, votes, no different. You only are adding here. And if there's a removal, there needs to be a very good explanation as to why. And that has not been provided, and simply nor is it consistent with how the data is structured and what we've seen in our analysis as to any part of the process that would be consistent with normal or routine legal voting.
Are there any questions?
Can I make one brief, Mr. Chairman,
yes.
one brief note?
Yes.
Just as a point of reference in layman's terms, please understand that the data that your Secretary of State's office is certifying with is the same data that shows these negative decrements, is the same data that they are receiving, is what the New York Times is reporting, is what the networks are reporting. So either the Secretary of State's office is recording and certifying results that have negative errors and fraudulent votes in them, or someone is giving them negative information. We're not here to point fingers. We're just here to tell you that the certification of votes and the votes that were submitted for the state of Georgia have negative swings in them and have decrements in them. And these are errors, and they are not representative for the state of Georgia and how the state of Georgia's voters voted.
Wow.
Nice. Mr. Chairman, may I also add something?
Yes.
So there was a point in that video where we showed, I think it was Richard Barron, who had said that 113,000 votes were cast, 105,000 were adjudicated, right?
Right.
Now, that's not physically possible, which we can prove mathematically, but at the same time, if you adjudicate 105,000 votes, you have to understand from a technological perspective, as we've delved into all the different aspects of how the vote moves along. When you adjudicate a ballot, that old reference, the image that you saw or anything like that, is completely destroyed. It's gone. You can no longer reference that thing. And when you go run a hand recount, like you did in Georgia, then you're looking at the printouts of those ballot scans. So at no point did the original voter intent enter into that process once it's destroyed. And that's the one thing I don't really hear people talking about, which is very, very important, is that original ballot that you cast, especially from an absentee point, is destroyed and replaced with a new image with no metadata, no trail, and even from an audit perspective, it would fail because from an audit perspective, they're all using the same account to audit, so you don't know who made that change. You don't know how many times that change was made in the past. And if I had a group of two people, the Republican and Democrat, which used to be three people, but if I had a group of two people that was auditing something, and then they changed that changed the ballot image, and then the other people from the League of Women Voters then audited that exact same ballot, the only thing you would see from the end perspective, data-wise, is that final audit. You would not see any intermediate audit or any intermediate ballot image or the original ballot image. So keep that in mind when we're talking about adjudicated ballots. That should be a very severe thing to have to audit something. And when you're freely saying that there's 105,000 ballots that were audited, either you are saying that there's some kind of impossibility in the auditing process, or that you don't know what an audit means. And this person is in charge of the elections in Fulton County. So I just want to.
The major point is that if every vote counts, and we're seeing vote swings where there are changes, whether it's one vote, 30,000 votes, 200,000 votes, at what point do you as legislators, as elected officials of your people, start to raise the question, why are my people not being represented? Why are my voters' votes not counting?
And I said audit, I actually meant adjudicate, my bad. I meant adjudicate.
First, and the results in Georgia are far worse than Pennsylvania. So this is what I wrote. Folks, this is how Georgia and Pennsylvania are intertwined, because a very powerful calculating domestic and or foreign actor ran an optimizer between these two states as though there were two stocks in a portfolio and calculated which voters were disposable. So when I took the top 1,000 names in Pennsylvania, you'll find that there's 440,000 last names. From based on what I just said with the national database. I did the same thing with Georgia. and I did this before I got called to do this testimony, by the way. So I already wrote this up about, I think, 6 days ago. With over 2 million people between these two data sets, the differential between how much Georgia is overstating how many people should be in the sample size is offsetting the shortage of people in Pennsylvania. So it's literally, there's a shortage of 440,000 people that should exist in Pennsylvania, and there's an overage of 428,000 people in Georgia. So literally less than 12,000, 0.6% on over 2 million records. And it gets even better than that. When you run the correlation between the last names in Pennsylvania and the same last names in Georgia, the same ones, like literally looking at Smiths, looking at Williams, et cetera, you have a negative 42% correlation. And I think the reason it isn't higher is there's some people with last names that didn't make the top 1,000 names in Georgia. But if you adjusted for that, I'm sure the correlation would shoot up. There is no doubt in my mind that based on the evidence, Stacey Abrams, if she was involved with this, because she says she's taking credit for this election, she needs to be arrested for probable cause. Your Secretary of State should be arrested for probable cause. Anybody can pull this data back down for the state of Georgia and run the analysis themselves. I will tweet exactly how to do it. You can set it up in Excel. If you have a computer with Excel, I will show you the instructions. You can do these counts yourself, and you can see for yourself that it makes no sense that basically 1 out of every 2 people in Fulton that have a particular name, that 1 out of every 2 that you have is only one other person. There's no other person in Fulton when you run into somebody that has that name. It makes absolutely no sense. It's just mind-boggling that they were that lazy in creating this fraud. That's the only reason why I was able to catch this. I think that they were sloppy. The data is there, and I pulled up one last thing I want to mention. So I wanted to drill down and pull into
Mr.
one
Pitton,
person's name.
I have about to run out of time, and I've got one more person that's been on hold.
Okay, can I give like 60 seconds? Can I just get 60 seconds, please?
30 seconds.
So, okay, Williams. I ran, there's 2 years. Williams in Fulton County, age 25, 26, and age 28 to 29, somewhere in there. All of a sudden, there's 160 of them that showed up, and there's 205 of them that showed up at 29. All the other ages around them were only one person, both directions. But those 2 age groups, a huge pocket showed up. I looked at those people, and would you believe that the first names of those people that just randomly showed up with the last names Williams, which I said is overstated by at least 2 times what it should be based on national statistics, was 45%. 45% of 300 plus people had a unique name from a subgroup of that name. And the same analysis applies on all these other last names as well. It proves my point that these people were manufactured, thrown back in time, and their identities are false. And we need the feds and the Justice Department to investigate this. I copy people on Twitter with the Justice Department, and I hope Ezra Cohen hears this message and the President of the United States hears this message. Arrests need to be made. This is absolutely disgusting and outrageous.
Thank you, Mr. Pitton, for your
testimony. Anybody could prove it. I can show them how to prove it in an afternoon. You don't need 3 days. Okay. I'll show you in 2 hours.
We've got to go.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Very serious new evidence that he's just obtained from a Fulton County voting polling place within the last hour, and I think this committee needs to hear this.
Okay, we'll give. Can you do it? Just a couple of minutes, 2 minutes.
So as we all know, there's multiple teams working on this, and our technology team's into it. And as was broke early in the week and last week about connected devices, at this very moment at a polling location in the county, not only do we now have access through the devices to the poll pad, the system, but we are in. and it's not supposed to have Wi-Fi, and that's not supposed to be able to happen. So we've documented now. It's communicating two ways in real time, meaning it's receiving data and sending data. Should never happen, shouldn't be Wi-Fi. We've now documented it in real time so we can suck down the data. But that's going on right there where everybody's voting. And I just wanted to get it into the record.
Thank you. Mr. Jones?
One of those, is it a mobile precinct or is it a...
No, it's a standing building.
Okay.
That this should not happen. Right. And it shouldn't happen in any way, but this is another one in real time. Won't disclose location because every location is being checked, but we've now confirmed it 100%.
Right. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Senator Beach, did you... And now comes Senator Beach and Tillery. Did you have a question? Okay, well, Senator Tillery.
Thank you. Thank you for your testimony. We've heard that there's 3 different types of machines: a scanner, a ballot marking device, and a polling pad.
Right.
Do you know which one it is communicating, or can you tell that?
Right now, what you heard in the past was coming through the thermostat and stuff. This is now a more direct access way, and so this is coming through the polling pad device where they're checking everything. But now, it only takes one device where you daisy chain them together and do it. The most important thing is that shouldn't be two-waying and even shouldn't be accessible or on, and it's there. Were there any other questions?
Could I ask him one question? What effect could somebody with dishonest purposes, what could that person do given this access that's going on right now in Fulton County?
Statistically, what can be going on when you have an operation like this is as that data is being exchanged and somebody's in it, can actually siphon off that data, modify the data, and feed it right back into the system, or kind of do a pump and dump in real time, right? It's kind of like at home when we all used to have a dial-up and you're connected to the internet and doing what you're doing, and then all your kids get on and the bandwidth goes down and everybody clogs. It creates that kind of atmosphere where not only are you in the system, but then once you get into the machine, you can do stuff in real time, changing its intent. That's what it opens up.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
If this egregious fraud is not fully investigated and addressed, the 2020 election will forever be regarded as illegitimate and the most corrupt election in the history of our country. Americans must be able to have complete faith and confidence in our elections. The fate of our democracy depends upon it. Now is the time for the American people to raise their voices and demand that this injustice be immediately corrected. Our elections must be fair, they must be honest, and they must be transparent, and they must be 100% free of fraud. We won this election by a magnificent landslide, and the people of the United States know it. All over, they're demonstrating. They're angry. They're fearful. We cannot allow a completely fraudulent election to stand. Thank you, God bless you, and God bless America.